Hey, what's up, guys? Ex Morgan with My Spiritual Life. I've got my husband Jared here today and our good friend Ian, who is going to join us in talking about this topic of why people just hate it when your life improves. So, a couple thoughts to introduce this topic is that there obviously this isn't everybody I'm talking about, but there are people, you know them, that if you try to make improvements in your life, like for example, eating better, getting up earlier, losing weight, things like that, or even just emotionally, like being more honest, being more direct, people don't like that. They can react very negatively toward that, and there's a lot of reasons why that is. And I was just excited to talk about this with Jared and Ian, and also Ian's wife will be joining here and there, Shayla, as we've all been trying to make a lot of improvements in our life over the last year, especially, and been seeing the weird social kickback that comes with that. And it's just kind of an interesting topic. So, thank you guys for joining us, and here we go. First thing that I will bring up about this is, Jared, I was hoping you could talk about learning Russian at work and the
Oh,
feedback you have received about that.
well, I got really ballsy and decided I wanted to learn Russian because I read a bunch of Dostoevsky, and it's actually fun because Ian served his mission in Russia, so he's been helpful in that. Recommended some books, gave me some tips, and it's awesome. Um, it's kind of funny though because I have a lot of downtime at work, and previously that downtime has been filled with scrolling on Facebook and making people angry, which is fun, obviously. But um
Making people very, very angry.
but I don't know, I've been reading a bunch of books lately. I'm like I gotta, I have all of this time, and it's very fortunate that I have all this time. And what a spit in the face of, I don't know, God or whatever it is that granted me this thing, to completely squander it by just sticking around on my phone. So I've been reading a bunch of classic novels, and I started learning Russian. I have Duolingo, and I've got like a book I've been learning out of. It's just funny that most people are pretty decent about this, but there's been a couple people that have like given me shit at work for it, like, this is just a whim. And like that was one of the things I was told. Oh, you're just learning this on a whim. I was like, well, okay, maybe, I don't know, but like I'm trying to learn a language. What the fuck are you doing? Like, I mean, worst case scenario, I fizzle out after a week and I learned some interesting shit about Russian.
And you challenged yourself.
Yeah, it but it was funny because it's the same guy that would get mad no matter what I was doing. He would, oh, why you always on your phone? And then the second I'm not on my phone, he's like, you always got your nose in a book. And he's like, oh, what are you learning that Russian for?
What does he want you to do? Sit there and stare at the wall?
I think he wants me to be a punching bag for his shortcomings, but
seems more likely.
And it's this issue that I always call the flying man theory, is that if people had the ability to fly, but what they had to do to earn that ability was, I don't know, take care of themselves even a little bit, or it was like remotely challenging to gain the ability to fly like Superman, I think most people wouldn't do it. And they wouldn't do it under the guise of like, oh, I'll get to it or whatever. But the people who do it, the people who do whatever ritual it takes to be able to fly, those who wouldn't would mock them. Like, I'm positive this would happen. Like, they'd be like, no, walk, you asshole.
I don't have time to learn to fly, so you're being disrespectful to me.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
there is always and I compare this to working out, or is it like, because I know a lot of people. I'm not a workout guy. I should be, but I know a lot of people have been really into working out, gotten really fit, and like the excuse that everybody gives, "Oh yeah, I wish I had the time." Like, what the hell are you talking about? I see what we've got a guy at work that brings like during his downtime, he brings a medicine ball and like just does lunges from one side of our facility to the
Oh
other.
my god.
Like he's a
Wow.
cool motherfucker. And like all these people claiming they don't have time. He has time to do that at work.
Right.
What are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it is one of those things where it's like you feel like these okay, so we don't want to get better oftentimes. It's not in our nature to want to improve always because of how much work and effort it takes, and if we're already burnt out, then we don't wanna do it, and so, it's just interesting to watch people, like, they will come up with excuses of why they can't do what you're doing so that they feel better about the fact that they're not doing those things.
But it's always something very virtuous too. It's like, I don't have time because I'm just too good of a mom. I'm just too attentive to my kids to, get off my ass every night and
Right,
work
right.
out.
Shayla,
Yeah.
thanks for joining us. I already let people know you'll be on and off. Feel free to jump in with the conversation if you have something to add, or you can just watch. Ian, what thoughts on what we've said so far?
Um, I think it's really one of those things where you're objectified as a friend. The people, in my opinion, the people who treat you poorly for improving are the people who objectify you as a friend. They don't view you as an individual who wants to grow and improve and actually have some individuality. They view you as a character, an NPC in their life, and so when you start to change, that then creates an inconsistency in their life that becomes wildly uncomfortable. And so, because it's uncomfortable, it manifests as anger or annoyance. That's my theory. But it's one of those things where I didn't, like if I'm choosing to improve myself, I'm not doing it to gain necessarily their adoration. I'd hope that they'd be super psyched about what I'm doing, but at the end of the day, though, what I want to do to improve, I didn't put their name on it.
Yeah, I think your lizard brain kind of tells you that like anything that reminds you of what you should be doing is bad and you should hurt it. Like I've noticed that like if our house gets like really dirty or something like that and Morgan just snaps and gets up and wants to go like do the dishes or something, what I want to do is just be mad at her, be like, "Fuck you," you know, like for doing the dishes and making everything look better. But the reason I get mad at that is because I know that yeah, the dishes need to be done.
That's
We need to
funny.
clean up, and she's reminding me by being better than I am that I need to be better than I am.
Okay, that's really funny because like we're on like a schedule with cleaning now. It's way better than it used to be. But in the past, that was what would happen when like
Yeah.
when we were both working full time, both of us didn't want to clean, and I'd finally start cleaning. You would get mad because it made you feel bad.
Because now I
Because
gotta
now I
clean.
gotta clean. Anyway, that's just kind of funny. Couple of shout outs really quick to Gail, who is a Patreon supporter. Thank you so much. Thanks for being here. And just wanted to say hi to Jay and LOH, who are awesome, super fans. So thank you guys for being here. Okay. Oh, I had something I was going to say about that. Why don't Ian and Shayla? Why don't you guys tell us about your whole getting up early thing? What started that?
Yeah,
What are
which
the
by the way, Morgan told me about that, and that was like I also had that reaction. Oh fuck you! No, I gotta do that.
It's something we're working on. It's something we're working on. Okay, tell us like what it is, what you're doing, what it's been like, how people have reacted.
Yeah, well, so over the summer I wanted to try and, as we're talking about here, improving. And was at Barnes and Noble and I was looking at all the different books and whatnot, all the self-help books, and I was just, waiting to see something interesting. I don't know. I was dying for something to spend my money on. Found this book called Discipline Equals Freedom, and I was like, that's very provocative, but I'm curious. So I bought the book, and it was by a guy, his name is Jocko Willink, and he's a Navy SEAL and whatnot. And it's just he's very, very overt in the way he talks, and it's very, very military style and whatnot. I don't necessarily gravitate towards it, but I did read at the beginning of the book, he talks about, he's like, discipline starts with waking up early. I wake up at 4:30 because I want to be awake before my enemies. And purely out of spite, I decided to wake up at 4 so that it was before him. And it really just started out of a spite thing. I was just like, you know what? You think you're better than it? No, I will wake up at 4 and I will do so consistently, just to, because every day he wakes up, or every day on his Instagram, he'll post a picture of his watch. And almost always it's a picture of like 4:32 or whatnot. And it's like a, motivational, like get up and go. And every time I see that, I'm like, hey, what were you doing for the last half hour? Because I got my workout in during that. It's just like petty. Super petty. But that's kind of what it started out as. And I was like, well, okay, let's try waking up. And then I'd wake up at 4. And I was like, wow, this is incredibly difficult. I need something to actually keep me awake. So then I started working out. And it wasn't anything crazy. It was just like 3 workouts per se. It wasn't to necessarily lose weight or gain muscle or anything. It was really just to keep me awake. Then after doing that for a little bit, I really liked it. And then I decided, you know what, maybe I should try this now with a couple other things. Like maybe I should try eating 3 consistent meals and just keep the meals very basic, but eat them consistently. So I started doing that. I improved my workout a little bit. And then after I had breakfast, got ready, everything, my workout was done. It was 5:30 in the morning. So I had I had like 3 hours. So I used to, a little bit of context, I used to wake up at 7:45 when my morning meeting would start. I would walk downstairs into my office on Microsoft Teams, with my camera off. And it would literally, that's how I would wake up, is to the sound of my meeting starting. So you want to talk about behind the curve? It was bad. So that's why changing then to the 4 a.m. model was awesome. But then it presented a different problem. I had to be in bed by like 8:30, 9 o'clock every night. Because if I wasn't, I was toast for the rest of the day. And even then I was still toast for the most part. Like it was tough around like 12. So so that's kind of been the program I'm on. But she's been doing it longer than I have, actually. She's been doing 5:30, 6 o'clock.
Yeah, so I was, but then I decided not to. It's really hard to do things. It's really hard to improve on things when your spouse is on the same schedule as you. And so I just kind of gave up. But when he told me he wanted to wake up at 4, I initially was like mad. I was like, are you serious? Like all this time I've been trying to wake up early, and then how are we going to watch our Netflix shows at night if you have to go to bed at 9 o'clock every day or whatever? I was like, whatever, I'll just do it with you. So I wake up at 5. I wake up an hour after he does. I need more sleep than he does. But honestly, it's been great. Like, to be able to accept what he's doing is good and like go with it, maybe like try to improve my life too when he's improving his life. And I don't know, it's been amazing actually. Like we have a lot more time in the morning to spend with each other, and we have time to do the things we need to do, like our self-care. And that for me includes exercise. And it's just nice to have time before the kids wake up too. That's a huge thing for me. But it was really hard for our friends at first too, because I feel like, they like stay up late. And that was hard for me because I like to stay up late and talk with them, or I like to stay up late and hang out with Ian. Like we used to have Netflix shows we'd watch and stuff. But That's not really a thing anymore, and that's okay. I've accepted that. It's fine. This actually, I like it better this way. So it's been a good change, I guess, and I'm glad I accepted it.
So tell me how your friends have reacted. Like, have people given you a hard time about it or made fun of you for it or like been weirded out by it?
I can only recall like one time someone straight up like made fun of us, but most people are just like, okay, like why?
Why?
They're
Yeah,
like, that's weird.
There's this
So-
great interview with Louis C.K. where he talks about his daughters. They don't have TV in their house because like he had a TV show and everything, and they're like, "You don't have a TV in your house? What?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's my kids need to not watch TV. We don't have a TV. It's fine." And he said that the most frequent reaction to that is fuck you. And the one I get the most is I'll do every like 3 months out of the year. I'm very insistent on doing no alcohol for a full month, and that's the one that really gets people like, okay, like you're like, if I ever mention it, it's because I'm bragging. It's,
Yep. Yeah, no, it's been pretty interesting. I have had, I going to like a poker night or to a friend's house or whatnot. You get there at like 6, and then you leave at 8:30, and everyone's like, "What are you doing? Like, why are you going home?" And it's like, you don't see like most of my free time now is in the mornings. Like you usually like it was wake up at 8, do work, and then after work I had all this time at night to do whatever. But reality is you have all this time, but you just spend all that time decompressing, or
Yeah.
I do. I spent all this time like watching Netflix or trying to find something interesting on YouTube and just kind of chilling. But now in the morning times I'll sit there in my chair back there. I got a candle over there, and I got a little little shelf that I'll put whatever book I'm reading on, and I'll read. I might even read for an hour, and if it's good, I might read for an hour and a half because I have that kind of time. And it's in the morning. I just finished working out, so I have that kind of energy too. So, and at night, by the time I put the kids to bed and I'm finished with work, I'm exhausted. So so it ends up working out anyways. And then I just go to bed with the kids, or sometimes stay up a little later, take care of whatever I need to. One thing I do though is I will put my workout clothes at the foot of my bed. So when I do that, I wake up and immediately can put on my clothes.
Yeah.
you do have to be. It's part of it is that you have to be humble enough to not leave it all up to self-control.
Yeah.
Like I remember watching this clip from My Big Fat Fabulous Life. That's about that woman with PCOS who's trying to lose weight, or at least it was in the beginning of the show. But as the show progressed, she slowly just was like, yeah, I'm not going to try to lose weight anymore. I'm perfect the way I am. And then there was this clip where her personal trainer that she had hired, fired her basically. And it's because like he followed her out to her car and he looked around and was like, you got like half-eaten cookies everywhere just sitting in your car from gas stations and stuff like that. And she was like, I look at this and see how good I did because I only ate half the cookie, which like it's funny that she says that, but it's true that like maybe that was all that willpower could grant her, is only eating half the cookie. Because he then says that to her. He's like, I gave you those energy bars. I gave you a meal prep plan. Why didn't you follow? She's like, I ate all the stuff. And he's like, the planning is where it matters. You cannot leave it up to willpower. You are not that strong. And I remember the first time I saw that, that phrasing sounds like you're just trying to be a dick to somebody, telling them they're not that strong. But his tone when he said it, it wasn't him trying to be a dick. It was, and it wasn't him telling her she's uniquely weak. It's just him telling her, nobody's that strong. We lost.
I'm there.
Oh, there he is.
No, it's true. Nobody is that strong. And if you do leave it up to willpower, I mean, it's just not going to work out, right? You have to have a little bit more of a why. And instead of just pure raw, I'm just going to do this just because I feel like I can and it's all going to work out. Almost never works out.
Right.
And I mean, like, for instance, I've tried losing weight so much in the past. I would always stick around 210, 200, and I just could never break the 200 mark. And so then starting this 4 a.m. thing, I was like, you know what? Let's just try focusing on the habits, not focusing on, losing weight or even getting in shape. Just start with these basic building block habits. I'm down to like 171, and the main goal was to not lose weight in the first place. It just happened because of all of these fundamental building blocks I have in my day that are habit, right? Like, eating 3 meals a day that are, very scheduled, very organized. And that, again, wasn't necessary to lose weight because I wasn't calorie counting. I was just like, okay, how much can I eat and not hate myself? That was the goal of all 3 meals. It's like, I want to be full and I don't want to hate myself. Let's just figure that out first. And then once I figured that out, I mean, I didn't even make it to the next step and I was already losing 10 pounds. It was just wild. So it's true though. So it's being able to set yourself up correctly. I mean, it's really just this massive launch pad. Like, for instance, in the morning time as well, I'll put my clothes that I'm wearing for the next day in my bathroom the night before. That way I don't have to go back upstairs and see my bed again. Because keep in mind, I'm finishing up my shower and whatnot around 5 in the morning. And I still could be potentially a little tired. So if I go upstairs, I'm in my underwear or whatnot, and I get in my bedroom, the temptation to just crawl back in bed with my wife is still real, So trying to like safeguard those things and just kind of set yourself up for success it's wild how that works. And then it just becomes like normal.
I love how you talked about, like, you've just focused on building the habit, because that is where the success really comes from. Because there's a lot of people that lose weight, but then they put it right back on. And it's because they took all this willpower to kind of lose weight really fast, but then they didn't really change their lifestyle. So it's just going to go right back. So it's about building those healthy habits that's really going to improve your life. So I love that. In Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life book that I super love, there's a chapter called Make Friends with People Who Want the Best for You. And that chapter totally changed my life because I realized that most of my life I had friends who didn't want the best for me. And not because they weren't good friends, but because they were so insecure that me shining was upsetting to them. And the way that Jordan Peterson talks about it in that chapter is when you step up and you do something amazing, it casts a greater shadow on their flaws. And so they, instead of encouraging you, will try to knock you down a level. And it's not that they're trying to hurt you, but it's that they're trying to protect themselves from their own shame. And so I started to see that with some of my friendships at the time, and it was really hard for me because I was like, I feel like I'm trying really hard to make these good improvements, and I feel like I'm getting shot down, and that is so discouraging to me. And it's so interesting because I've heard since that they say habits are contagious, right? Not just bad habits, but also good habits, which is why I've really enjoyed being friends with you and Shayla, because you guys are kind of on the same track that we are as far as like working harder on self-discipline and building healthy habits. And it's really helped me to see you guys because I feel more empowered. Like I feel like I want to be around you guys because I want your good habits to rub off on me, as opposed to what the norm is. And I feel like the norm is more often people either kind of shrugging it off, being confused, being cynical, those kinds of reactions. which is unfortunate. But again, it's a self-protective reaction. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't want to admit to myself, I don't want to feel bad about myself that I am not getting up early, or that I'm not working out, or that I'm not eating good. And so it's this weird, self-defense mechanism where they can say, congratulating you feels like it's the same thing as shitting on me, so I'm just not going to do that. Because I can't say good job for learning Russian. Otherwise, I'm I'm telling myself bad job for not learning Russian. It's very unhealthy way of thinking, but it's very common, I feel like.
Right.
Yeah, so I do like that rule. I had been thinking the same thing. Make friends with people who want the best for you, because it does feel like no matter who you're friends with, and Shayla even mentioned it, I think that it's easier when you have someone on your team. And that's like a thing that I would have kind of scoffed at years ago. I would have been like, no, I don't need I don't need somebody to, lift me up or whatever. But that's part of the humility of, bettering yourself is first. One of my friends has written on his wall, you got to be shitty to get better. And I kind of like that, because
Yeah.
I think you have to sort of acknowledge that we're all shitty. But there is sort of this thing that when you hang out with people who challenge you, there's things that your soul wants, but your body hates, right? And I don't like,
Right.
this isn't even a religious thing. I think that just in reality, it makes sense to separate soul from body in a way that, like, and things that the soul wants is like a husband or a wife that challenges you, friends that challenge you. But your body doesn't want those things. Your body just wants to survive. And those things make it a little bit more difficult to survive, but maybe a little bit easier to live. Right. And,
Yeah.
having friends that challenge themselves perpetually saddles you with the terrible responsibility of having to measure up. And that's difficult to handle.
I think it's one of those things where if you are trying to, if you always view yourself in competition as well, then you don't want to have friends that are improving. You don't want to be around people that are improving, because then, then it's like, okay, I'm the master of my group. Nobody here is improving. I have improved marginally a little bit more than they have in my eyes. And so I really hope that they don't make any progression whatsoever, or else it will be slightly threatening to me. And, I'm way too competitive, sort of thing, And so I think that there's some people that competition comes out, and instead of, trying to grow with your friends, you want your friends to be your seats.
Dude, I love that you brought that up, because I totally forgot until you brought it up. Jordan Peterson talks about that in his chapter as well. He's like, don't assume that you have noble intention in being friends with people who don't want to go anywhere in life. There you go. There you go. He's like, don't assume that you have this noble intention, because it's very likely, it's very possible that you're surrounding yourself with people who aren't improving because you don't want to improve, and you don't want to be around people that are going to improve, because it will make you, feel like you need to do that and you don't want to. And I think it's so beautiful, because I want to be the kind of friend who calls forth the best in my friends. I want to be that kind of friend, because I want those kind of friends in my life. I want the kind of friends that are going to tell me that I'm capable of more, and not to like overwhelm myself, but to encourage myself, because it's easy sometimes to just sit in this like victimization of like, oh, I just have too much and it's too hard and it's like, okay, you got to work through that first of all, because that in itself is a big block. But it's possible that it's there for a reason, that maybe you are doing maybe you have too much on your shoulders. But I think more likely is that you are scared of focusing on what really matters. And that's easy to just stay down here in this, like, I'm busy, I'm cleaning, I'm doing these little things, but I'm not really doing the more challenging, more important things.
Yeah.
So, okay. So, LOHS. Okay, who do you guys like besides Jordan Peterson? And the answer is, in the self-help arena, there's not very many people I like, really. So I don't really pay much attention to self-help. It's just a lot of Jordan Peterson spoke to me. But if you want other people that I enjoy, there's Marcus Aurelius. Of course, he's, long gone. Roman Emperor wrote Meditations. Basically his stoic thoughts, which were pretty great. But self-help, I don't really pay much attention to it. I don't know. You've read some Jonathan Haidt books, but that's a lot more about parenting than self-help.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that I pay attention to who sprinkle it in every now and then, but nobody verbalizes it quite like Jordan Peterson.
LOH also did say, you know what you call a Mormon that procrastinates? A later today's saint, which I thought was funny.
Yeah, I like
do
Jordan.
like Jocko Willing.
Oh, sorry, what was that?
I said I do like Jocko Willing, so there's a good self-help one. David Goggins.
Yeah, right. And I like to find people that try and place reality as plainly as possible, that try and expose the suffering. I think that, and I'm actually reading, not to get religious or anything, but I am reading the Bible again, purely from a philosophical perspective. And I'm reading that one of the greatest strengths in Christianity is suffering, earthly suffering, but it's not talked about nearly enough. I think that everybody likes to throw suffering on Jesus Christ, and then no one likes to acknowledge the reality of suffering in the world. And so that's why I like certain self-help people like Jordan Peterson, Jocko Willing, David Goggins, because they very plainly present suffering as a part of reality. It's not something that you can necessarily skirt around. It's not necessarily something you can avoid. It's something that is a given with being a human. And so I like to find people that explicitly say, no matter what you do, you will go through suffering and you need to figure out how to get through it. And sometimes you just have to get through it and go through the motions. And it's very unsexy or unpleasing to hear that, but it's true. And sometimes it can be very motivating. So it's self-help is a little, it's a little interesting. But I like to find people that are very real, and it is very tough. I'm not saying that Jordan Peterson, Jocko Willing per se are like the realest people there, but they do write they paint reality a lot of times in a way that's digestible.
Yeah, well, they focus more on the self-help than anything else, because there's other people that I've gotten a lot of good self-help kind of advice from that sprinkled in with the other things that they generally talk about. People like Brett Weinstein and Heather Haying are pretty great. The Dark Horse podcast. There's Peter Boghossian, James Lindsay. I don't know. There's a bunch of these people who have said things that have helped me improve my life, but most of them don't focus on sort of the self-help type thing. And most of the people that brand themselves as self-help people, I feel like are cheesy, and I don't really want to listen to them.
Right. Like I read the book, The Power of One More. It was a good book. But it was felt like Tony Robbins-esque, Atomic Habits. Atomic Habits. Yeah, sorry, that's a great one. Yeah, I just saw that. That's actually what gave me the idea habit stacking, right? So you wake up at 4 a.m. Okay, what are you going to do next? I use 4 a.m. as a base for my next habit, which is working out. So if I accomplish my working out, or if I accomplish waking up early, then I'm going to work out. If I work out, then I'm going to start eating right immediately off the day. So yeah, so being able to habit stack is actually where I got that idea from. So
yeah, the big one for me, cold showers. I haven't been doing this much lately, but I've noticed the times that I do the best is when I'm taking cold showers in the morning, and it sounds miserable, and it is at first, but it's like we have so few naturally occurring mountains to climb in sort of our posh lives that you kind of just have to give yourself a mountain to climb. You have to give yourself something painful that you have to get through. And I noticed that if I wake up like I would just have to get to that cold shower. And if I take the cold shower, I am completely unwilling to waste the rest of the day.
It's true. I know that the house could be spotless if Jared takes a cold
Yeah.
shower. I wanted to
shower.
respond to this comment, Finding Craigie. Sarah, she said, "Yeah, I don't like the word suffering. I had a not great childhood, and I don't like the belief that suffering is just part of life. It shouldn't have been part of my childhood whatsoever." So obviously, I think when we're talking about Jordan Peterson and these other people talking about the innate suffering in life, just death in itself causes suffering, and all of us are going to die at some point, or we're going to have parents or friends or people die. So there is suffering in life that's unavoidable, but that's not to diminish your childhood, whatever bad things happen to you. It's not saying like, oh, that's just a part of life. Like, no, that's a really shitty thing that happened, and that sucks, and that's awful, and you have to work through that. And ultimately, I think it's there's a distinction there that I was just trying to clarify.
Yeah, actually, if you don't mind,
yeah, go for it.
about that one. I don't like the word suffering. Yeah, no, it's true. And there's a wide range of what the word suffering encompasses, right? Like suffering could be like, oh, my shower isn't even cold. It's just not as hot as it normally is, and I'm kind of pissed off. Versus incredibly egregious things that happen to humanity. You know what I'm saying? So suffering can encompass a lot. So yeah, despite I'm assuming that the suffering in this sense was probably on the egregious side, and I don't think that having egregious suffering like that on a daily basis when you're a child is something that should be a part of your life for sure. So
yeah, I would say that suffering is unavoidable. But yeah, generally when people talk about having really bad childhoods, that tips it over into an arena that is just, you shouldn't cause suffering just because you're like, yeah, life is suffering, do well. And your parent owes you, somewhat of a childhood.
right.
So I think that you will suffer no matter what. I think suffering is unavoidable. But cruelty is not to be lauded just because suffering is unavoidable.
Yeah.
Right. Like you shouldn't, exactly. That's a great example. You shouldn't use the fact that certain suffering in life is unavoidable as an excuse to be cruel to other people. Like it's not, yeah.
So I had this cool thought when I was when this was all kind of coming to a front for me after I was reading 12 Rules for Life and just kind of realizing how backwards I had my priorities. I was talking to my therapist and how certain friendships just weren't going the direction that I wanted them to go in, and just was trying to figure out how to handle the situation because I was like feeling guilty that I didn't want to spend time with certain friends, that I didn't want to be around them anymore because I was becoming more honest and focusing on my mental health and setting healthy boundaries, and also my physical health, like eating better and being more active and things like that. And it just felt like certain friendships were making me not feel like I should be doing those things, and it was very hard for me to deal with because I felt guilty that I didn't want to be around those people. And I remember talking to my therapist about it, and she said that it's one of those things in life where you look for people that are kind of on the, somewhere in the same level as you as far as maturity or skill set. And that if one of you is growing a lot and the other isn't, it will cause a natural divide between those friendships, and it's not something to feel guilty about. It's just kind of like the natural, way of life. It's just that you're going in different directions, or you are maturing and they aren't, or what have you. And that was hard for me to swallow that concept, because I just felt like I should be loyal to my friends, even if they aren't being the kind of friends that I would like to have. Like, I owe them, this loyalty. And that what I've been learning since is just how important it is to be loyal to yourself first. Because if you can't focus on what you need and what's most important for you to grow and thrive, then like who else is in charge of that? Like, you're the only one in charge of that. And so just understanding in my mind that there was this desire for safety, right? Of like, I want these friends to be my friends forever, because it's so safe to feel like you have these people that are going to be there for you all the time, but that that safety may be sacrificing growth. And so to keep that in mind, and I've been trying to keep that in mind in my relationships, that like the goal isn't the long haul necessarily. The goal is, who can I spend time with that's going to allow me to grow and to encourage me and to be a mutually beneficial relationship, and not just someone that I feel like I I owe them something or something like that, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because everybody has whatever path they want to take. Everybody has the option of taking, some people really want to put the pedal to the metal and, improve a lot and do a lot of interesting things. Other people really relish in the comfort and safety in consistency. And so it can be difficult. I have lots of friends like this on all parts of this type of spectrum, as far as, how much they want to improve, or how much they want to maybe improve just in a very smaller, less overt way. So those relationships though have to be adjusted sometimes. So for instance, sometimes instead of hanging out with them, every weekend, I'm shooting them a message saying, hey, how's it going? Anything new? How are you doing? Or just talking to them on the phone, maybe once a month, sort of thing. And that way, I mean, the relationship is still relevant, and it's not pretending it's not pretending to be something that it's not. Right. So for instance, I'm not going to treat that person like they're my best friend if we don't really have anything in common anymore. And it's really tough, though. It's a tough pill to swallow, because they could have been your best friend at some point, but life moves on. But that doesn't mean you have to sever the relationship, or you can still be friends with them. So yeah, it's interesting. It's a really interesting thought, and trying to become an adult and grow in that way has been it's been very odd to see how it plays out. And it's been very odd to see how your friends, when you were on the same level, how completely different things get when you have 5-6 years of pure adult freedom to choose, what life path you want to take. It's very interesting to see what people choose. So it's very interesting to see what I choose as well. Like, I never thought I'd be here.
So I'm curious to know what had previously stopped you from this? And because the reason I ask is, I think the thing that stopped me, or the comfort that kept me from ever trying to improve myself, and still keeps me from it, is it's very well illustrated in the speech Teddy Roosevelt gave called "The Man in the Arena." I don't know if you've ever heard that, but it's basically just him talking about how there's a man down there fighting, and he's bleeding for this. He's getting hurt, he's getting knocked down, getting back up, landing blows, doing all that stuff, and he might lose. And what are you doing? You're just up there outside the arena, just criticizing the way that he fights. That's all you're doing. And of what value to yourself is that? Because you're not the one in the arena, because he might lose this fight, but he learns from it. And you just watched somebody learn. You didn't actually learn yourself. And I think the thing that had kept me for the longest time in the comfort of mediocrity is what was this shield of apathy, basically apathy and irony. The only real sin was being earnest. And I think that David Foster Wallace has this great quote where he talks about how irony is just, what does he say? Irony is the song of the bird who has grown to love his cage. And that's like, that was me. I used to play basketball, and I think I'm naturally a very competitive person, but I stifled that because being competitive is risky. And the only real comfort is in risk aversion and in not being that man in the arena. So during the times that you are in the arena, pretend that you are not. Like, pretend that you don't care about this basketball game. Make obviously insane shots while smirking like an asshole so that everybody knows you're not taking this seriously. And any good that you do during that basketball game is going to be like, I mean, in my head, this is what I thought. This doesn't line up with reality, but what I thought was, oh, if I do make that shot, or if I perform decently when I'm obviously not trying very hard, people are going to look at me and be like, wow. Like, if he wasn't even trying and he did that good, think of how good he could be if he did try. And they'll fill in the gaps of what I would look like if I were actually the man in the arena. But they don't actually do that. They kind of just look at you and you're like, you're an asshole. You're mocking sportsmanship. You're mocking the people who are taking this seriously. And you're ruining it for everybody in the meantime. So it was apathy. It was this cage that, that kept me safe from the risk of losing, but it kept me caged. So I don't know. I'd be curious to know what kept you from improving when you didn't improve.
That's a tough one because I think back and I have a journal. I decided to start journaling, just my thoughts. I really hope nobody reads that journal because
you might be like Marcus Aurelius and they just, publish it after you're dead.
Oh man, it is so bad. It is so dark, and it is so like, someone please check on whoever wrote this. This is bad.
Well, if you're already dead, then we won't have to check on you.
Right. But I figured, I was like, because I didn't think I was in that bad of a place, but I was just, I'll just freehand this and just kind of write, wow, I was in a bad place. So, and that's what kind of like opened up to the idea that I was in a bad place and that I needed to even change in the first place, because a lot of times I was like, well, I mean, like, I was just really grateful for the things I had. And frankly, at this time, I had accomplished a lot and I was leading a lifestyle that I was very happy with. But I really wasn't that happy. I was happy on like the onset, wasn't deeply happy. In fact, I was deeply dissatisfied. So it took a long time for me to actually have just a shred of humility. And I'm not saying I'm humble by any means, but I was injected with a small dose of humility to accept a bit of reality of wait, I actually don't really like where I'm at. And so that's when I kind of had to be real with myself. Okay, I'm making mistakes, even though that I'm kind of enjoying my life and I'm getting pleasure from a lot of different things. There are mistakes being made. I really don't know what mistakes are being made, but I can promise you that if I'm just freehand writing my thoughts and they're sounding like this, then I have a problem. And so that's when I started looking at a lot of different things. I was like, I don't really even know what the problem is, to be honest. So, but then I kind of, after looking at my day to day, that's when the first thing was me waking up when not when my alarm goes off, but when my meeting starts, when I start hearing Microsoft Teams ringing, and that's when I wake up. That's when I was like, wait, I don't have any control over my day. My day completely controls me. I had to look for a spot between meetings to when I can shower and get ready for my day. You know what I'm saying? I was at the mercy of my day and I had no control. And that's when I realized I was like, okay, I need to do something to get control. And then, yeah, I really, really struggled with organized religion. So I definitely wasn't going that route. So fortunately, I found just the concept of discipline. Again, I'm not saying that that Jocko Willink is some, amazing angel or whatnot, but there's a couple things in that book that really got me going and got me thinking and kind of helped me accept that, wait a minute, I have been shielding myself from all sorts of things and only accepting pleasure, to where the pleasure was starting to devalue the pleasure. The more pleasure I was getting, the more my pleasure was devalued. The more video games I played, the less I liked video games. The more I listened to the music that I liked, the less I liked that music. And then it put me in an existential crisis. And so then I had to realize, I was like, wait a minute, life is going to make me in some way, shape, or form include displeasure in my day. So I had to pick the displeasure instead of displeasure. And that's the thing, is it's okay, you like this, you're going to spend 100% of your day doing things you like. Okay, well, unfortunately, I'm going to make sure that half of your life is filled with some sort of displeasure. And if you're going to fill it 100% with pleasure, then I'm going to take things you like and then make it turn into things you don't like. And then you're going to be totally fucked. And that's what I was realizing, was I was like, guitar wasn't as fun. Call of Duty wasn't as fun. My music wasn't as fun. So, and that's something I realized afterwards. So, but yeah, it was interesting. That kind of that dichotomy of, you have to include something skillfully and intentionally include something you really don't like to do, but helps you grow, will help you appreciate the things you do like to do that don't necessarily help you grow, and will help it retain its value. So trying to pick that balance has been interesting. But yeah, I'd say this is kind of a crazy tangent. Sorry, Jared. But yeah, being able to find out that I actually was not in a good spot was the biggest thing. And again, writing, just freehanding my thoughts in a journal, exposed it to me like somebody wrote me a letter saying, hey, you are actually totally screwed up in your head right now and you don't even know it.
Sure. So actually that brings me to this comment that was, I think journal is a good idea, but I'm worried I'll feel stupid. What would you say to that, Ian?
The crazy thing is you might actually look stupid and not know it. And so that's the thing that I realized, right? It's much scarier to realize that. And again, I don't necessarily mean this in a disrespectful way, but for me personally, I was not feeling good in the first place. That journaling was, it made me feel stupid. It really did. I'm not going to say it didn't, but it didn't make me feel anything different than I was already feeling. I was just able to put a label on it. I was like, oh, this makes me feel dumb. Okay, so that's what I've been feeling for the past 6 months. I feel dumb. Okay, so now I kind of at least have a starting point, just some foothold of where to start. It's never fun starting at the beginning or at the bottom of the mountain, but if you know you're at the bottom of the mountain, you can at least prepare for a climb.
Yeah.
Because if you think you're at the middle or at the top of the mountain, then you're not going to prepare for the climb nearly as much as you would if you're at the bottom. So knowing you're at the bottom of the mountain at least lets you digest reality.
You can be at the bottom, right, and pretend you're at the middle, but that it's not going to work, right? It's not going to work.
Because you're not going to put in the same amount of effort or preparation that you would if you're at the bottom. So,
Right.
so yeah, I mean, I would fully embrace, if you're scared of feeling stupid, I would fully embrace that feeling and I would dive into it, because the more stupid you feel and the more you're able to unapologetically strive to improve your life, the faster you're going to feel less stupid, in my experience.
So I was just going to say, like, my advice on that is you absolutely will feel stupid. And I think what you got to understand is that sometimes you need to feel stupid, right? And that was actually really well answered by LOH right here, who said something similar. Very wise. Being cringe is part of life. That's like the most difficult lesson that I've ever had to learn. And that's kind of what I mean by that shield of apathy, the shield of irony, is like, I would look back. I tore out pages of my mission journal because that was the only time I ever journaled was on my mission. And then like a year after my mission, I looked back on it and I was like, you are so stupid. You are so melodramatic. Oh my God, this is embarrassing. Nobody's reading it except for me. But like, this is embarrassing. So I can go back to my journals and I can find ripped out pages where it was like, I want to never know this again. But how arrogant of 22, 23-year-old Jared to assume that 30-year-old Jared wouldn't want to read that cringe, right? Because I do.
That's a good point.
Those are lost forever now. Those are things that I genuinely felt in the moment that now I don't have and I'll never have back. And sure, it was probably melodramatic. But that was one of those rare moments of me putting myself into the arena. And then later, when I had sobered up, so to speak, I tore any memory of that away.
Well, kind of going on with that, cringe is the evidence of improvement, right? So if you look back at those mission journals and they weren't cringy, it means that you stayed the same spot the entire time. You never actually improved to a point, because if you improve to a point where that was cringy, then there's that disconnect, right? That part that is cringy is no longer part of your reality. So that cringe, the fact that what you did back in the day was so cringy, that cringe itself is the evidence of your improvement of where you are now. So it could be like, oh, man, so nasty. So, but it was because you can view it as nasty because you've improved.
Right. I love that perspective, Ian. And I was going to say, so I love how you broke down like how you were able to get to where you are now, where you're more actively taking a role in improving your life. And it started with that acknowledgement. You said, I don't like where I'm at. And that is that acknowledgement, right? Of that, it's like Jared talking about the basketball analogy, right? You have someone who's only half-heartedly playing the game, and the reason they're only half-heartedly playing the game is because the failure won't hurt as much. If you play half-heartedly and you lose, you're going to be like, well, I didn't really try, so it's not really that big of a deal. And it feels like it's going to hurt less, but it's such a lie, because it's like what you're saying is, I feel better because I didn't really try. And it's like, wait, why is that what makes you feel better? Like, you should feel better knowing you tried your best. But there's that weight of failure that we make mean way too much. And because that weight of failure means so much, we'd rather not try and fail than actually try and fail. But like you said, cringe is part of life, failure is part of life. And if we can view failure more like a launching pad of growth, then we are going to improve so much more. And I think this is what differentiates people who, like, when you start to improve your life, the ones that will be happy for you and the ones that won't be. And the ones that won't be happy for you, the ones that will kind of tear you down or criticize you or make fun of you, it's because they don't want to feel the weight of their failure. And like you said, Ian, it's like sometimes we think, oh, if we don't look at it, it's not really there. Like if I don't acknowledge the fact that I'm at the bottom of this cliff, then it's not really happening. And all it is just trying to ignore our shame around what's going on. But the only way we can improve is to admit where we're at and to admit the gap between where we're at and where we would like to be, or where we think is possible. And that's a painful gap. And it takes a lot of effort and strength to acknowledge that gap, because it does hurt. But that hurt is so motivational, because that pain between the gap of where you are and where you could be is inspiring and motivating. So I really liked that. Acknowledge where you're at, and then you can actually start to take some control back in your life, take some steps toward filling that gap.
That
I was actually
go on.
I was talking with Shayla actually about this a couple days ago. Failure yields to attempts. So failure never actually kicks in if you're still in the process of attempting. So you could be attempting something and the attempt didn't work out, but if you stop making attempts before you've reached success, then failure actually kicks in. But if you continue to attempt before the success, then you're not actually failing, you're just on the path to success. So there is no fail if you're still attempting. There's just failed attempts per se. So
yeah, there's failed attempts. So we were just talking about this a couple hours ago, and I think this shield of apathy that I'm talking about is only really possible if you've deluded yourself into thinking that you can be outside the arena of life, right?
Yes,
so
yes.
When I talk about the analogy of the man in the arena, that might make sense in a sporting event, right? That might make sense if you are actually
on the bench,
in, like, you're just a spectator or whatever. But it can't make sense in life, because you can try to pretend that you don't care about the outcomes of life, but I'm thoroughly convinced there are no real nihilists, that it's an impossible thing to get to. And so pretending that you are not in the arena is at least as much of a failure as a failed attempt, but it's also like a failure to attempt. So you don't ever learn anything. So you can pretend all you want that, like, if you're on this basketball team of life and you choose to constantly sit on the bench, you can pretend that you're above everybody because you're not willing to jump into the game and look stupid like everybody, because that is life. You have to look cringe. But you actually, you have no choice but to be in the arena. And if you're in here and you realize you're in here, you might as well fight.
Right. It's this like, well, I don't want to look stupid, so I'm not going to try. But then it's like,
embrace looking stupid.
But then you look stupid for not trying. Like,
you look dumber. Actually,
you look even more dumb. Well, and if you convince yourself of that, then maybe you can actually try. I wanted to comment on, it's so true. I've been pushing something away for years because I'm afraid of not being good enough. I really relate to that comment, because like I had a lot of childhood trauma that just really made me believe that I was worthless, that I couldn't accomplish very much, and like, why bother? And also I was so thin-skinned and so overwhelmed that I couldn't possibly take a leap forward, because I was far too like emotionally and mentally overwhelmed. And I just want to say that to get over that hurdle, like you start with the journaling and validating your pain, because the big thing that's going to hold you back when you struggle with that I'm not good enough thought is that you're not validating your pain, so you're holding on to all of it. Because if you don't validate it, you can't let it go. And if you can't let it go, you're holding on to it, so you're exhausted, and you're far too exhausted to take any steps forward.
Well,
That's just my comment
and not
on
being
that.
good enough is having a goal. Like if your goal is to be as good as you already are, then that's a waste of a goal. So like you probably aren't good enough yet. Do it anyway. Like cuz that one of my favorite musicians is Geddy Lee, right? He's the bassist for Rush. He's an amazing musician. And like there's Rush, there's no band and there's other bands, but like there's no band that's more like in sync than Rush, and it's amazing the things that they can do. But like he'll talk about like how he had to look dumb sometimes, and I would love to see the times where Geddy Lee, international superstar of the bass guitar, looked really stupid in like a middle school talent show or something like that, because he wasn't good enough to be what he would someday become. And like if we could be good enough to be what we could someday become, there would be no improvement at all. That's just part of being a person.
Yeah. Well, and the whole like not good enough thing, that's usually rooted in shame and feeling terrible about yourself. And it's rooted in, it's a childhood trauma reaction. It's very, very difficult to deal with. And so my advice in that situation, because I've dealt with it and I've gotten a lot better, is to make your goal, instead of maybe your goal being to get up earlier or to eat better, make your goal to feel more confident and find books to read, therapists to go to, videos to watch that will allow you to grow your confidence. Because if you can grow your confidence and bridge that gap between you're not feeling good enough and being kind of in that deep mess, then you can actually start to do other things to organize your life. Because that's what happened for me, was like, I'm not good enough, I'm just a mess, I'm spiraling in my mess, and I didn't know how to get out of it. And I didn't realize how much my emotional state was just compounding all of my problems. It was almost like I was making my problems worse intentionally, because I didn't know how to deal with the root cause, which was get to the bottom of addressing this trauma and this dark past and deal with that and come to terms with it. Anyway, moral of the story is just that whole not feeling good enough thing. It is a serious thing. Make that your goal. How can I learn to feel better about myself? Because for me, it started with therapy. Once I could get past that, then I could actually organize my life. I had the mental space to actually improve my life just little by little. And I had the self-control to not do it so hard that I would burn out. Anyway, that's just kind of like a side tangent, but
really quick, just to kind of piggyback off that. When I first started in software engineering and programming and whatnot, I would ask my mentor questions, but he would never let me, he got to a point where he would never let me ask the question if I didn't know exactly what the problem was. So he made me identify the problem before he would ever even help me. He's like, that's your first thing, identify exactly what's wrong. And so once I found the actual problem, finding the solution was so much easier. I feel like in life, we try and search for a solution before we really even know the problem. So we just know
that's what we do like in communication with our relationships too, right? We start arguing about stuff that like it gets so out of hand because we can't just, what's the problem? What's actually the problem? And if we zone in on that, we can actually talk about matching solutions. That's funny that we do that. I've never thought about it in that context.
Yeah, it's just so much easier. You're right. And it's just so much easier once you know exactly what the problem is. A lot of times, especially in software engineering, the solution was obvious. It's like, oh, well, I know exactly what the problem is. I can just, this is the solution. This is how you fix that specific problem. But identifying the problem's the hard part, and sometimes it just takes a lot of patience and a lot of self-patience as well. Being able to say, okay, I don't need to have a solution right this second. Let's just take a second, try and figure out exactly what's going on here. What's the actual problem? Anyways, just piggyback off.
I love that. I love that. That's super helpful for me.
I think that one of the things that's helped me, and we touched on this a little bit earlier, is to surround yourself with people who challenge you, right? And I've been talking to more and more people who challenge me lately, and it is massively uncomfortable.
It's so intimidating.
It's not fun. Be around like it is fun, but it's like, so be around people who do intimidate you. Like I've got a bunch of friends who like know all about this literature, and I know so little comparatively. Like I might know a lot in my small little world that I'm part of, but the worlds that I'm reaching out to right now are intimidating as hell. And actually, one of the good examples of this was Ian was talking to you about, because I got real big into this Russian stuff. I learned all the alphabet and a little bit of the grammar, and then you came over and hung out, and Morgan was like, yeah, Ian speaks Russian, so talk to him, geek out with him about that. And I was like, a fellow language geek, you know? And then you were like, yeah, no, Russian's cool. I learned it on my mission. I've been trying to learn Arabic, and I'll tell you what, kanji is really weird. Oh man, Mandarin is weird because it's got this, you got to do this inflection thing. And I was like, oh my God, he's done so much more to this than I have. That's intimidating. What I need to do is I got to go back to my friends who don't know shit about language. And I can know more than everybody around me about language. But it was very helpful. I'm like, oh, I got to do Duolingo every day and read that book he suggested so I could keep up.
Dude, isn't that so cool? And I thought that was a big deal for Jared, just because in the past, like, yeah, well, I don't know if I should speak for you, but just
go for it.
Well, just he struggles to show anyone anything that isn't like perfected. And so the fact that I feel like you're challenging yourself so much lately with being around people who intimidate you more is such a huge sign of growth already. Like the fact that you're willing to be imperfect in front of people is a really big deal.
It's the willingness to look stupid.
Yeah.
Because like, and what a dumb thing to have to learn. Like, maybe I should have already known that in order to get smart, you have to first be stupid.
We'd just rather pretend that we're smart, right?
Yeah,
that's what we love to do. It's just we'll just pretend.
You should have known this all along. You should have learned this years and years and years ago. Is sort of the reaction that I get.
No, and like for me, I've been trying to challenge myself with, more challenging friendships as well. And I was like chatting with one friend online the other day, and he said something that I didn't understand. I was like, oh my God, moment of truth. Like he's going to think I'm stupid. And I, like in the past, what I would have done was run to Jared and be like, hey, what is he saying? Like, help me understand so I know what to say back. Or I would have just like changed the subject. Like I would have done something like that. But instead I had the humility. I was like, no, I'm just going to ask, because I would rather look stupid than pretend that I'm not stupid. Like in this, like, I don't like, okay, I could get away without him knowing that I don't know this thing, but I'd rather actually be smart. And the only way to actually become smart, rather than just pretending that I'm smart, is to ask questions and to have that humility. So I was like proud of that, because that was a hard thing for me, just because like Jared, I do have that fear of like people are going to think that I'm stupid. And I'm getting a lot more confident in being like, you know what? I don't know everything. I'm getting a lot more confident with being like, this is what I know, and I'm so open to learning, and that's hard. It's hard to get into that space. It takes a lot of it took a lot of effort for me to get to that point. And it was very uncomfortable getting to that point, but it's, massive growth in this space.
Yeah. I think it's weird because with children, we're so patient with them. They're learning to walk. They like poop in their pants, and we're so patient with them. We teach them go on the potty. We teach them how to talk. We teach them manners and stuff. And everyone just expects them to fail over and over again because it's their children. But as adults, we're kind of the same way. We're constantly learning, and I think we just don't give ourselves enough room for failure, and we expect way too much of ourselves. And I just think it's kind of silly. It's normal though. I mean, everybody does it. But yeah, even as adults, we're still kind of children. Like, we still have that learning ability, and we're not perfect. So I have to remind myself of that a lot, that it's okay to look dumb, and it's okay to fail. And I've done it a million times before. And if anyone has a problem with it, I mean, I guess that's on them. But yeah.
Right. I really like that analogy because it is like we have to parent ourselves, right? The Awakened Family talks about that. I love that book. It talks about how you have to parent yourself lovingly once you're an adult because you don't have a parent anymore. And that our reaction generally is to have a very negative internal parent, because it will reflect the parent that we grew up with. If we had, a parent that wasn't very loving and supportive, then we're going to have a very negative internal voice. So I really like that analogy, Shayla, because it is that, like, I need to be patient with myself, because if I'm not patient with me, I can't grow, I can't improve, I can't really do anything, because I'll just be locked into my fear and trying to hide the truth from people. And it's like, okay, well, you're not doing yourself any favors with that.
Well, hot damn.
Jay said, never stop asking questions. Hallelujah. Jay said, if I listened to my inner voice sooner, I would have woke up to the Jehovah's Witnesses being a cult sooner. Hey, man, at least you woke up, right? And not to diminish that, because yeah, we got to be better at listening to us. But hey, I'm just glad you're here, because that is a hard cult to leave. Really hard.
See, I thought the same thing about Mormonism. Like, I left that when I was like, I don't know, 23 or 24 or something like that. I was like, man, I wish I would have left it sooner. I wish I would have left it before I served my mission, because I hated my mission or whatever. But then I remember reading this this post on the ex-Mormon subreddit. I will never forget it, because like the title of the post was "What the hell now?" And it was basically, this guy was just saying, what the hell do I do now? I am 76 years old, and I just left the Mormon church. I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in tithing money. All of these things that I viewed as feathers in my cap, things like all of my kids serving missions, all of my kids being married in the temple, are coming crashing down as feeling meaningless at this point. What the hell do I do? And I was like, oh my God. Whew. I'm glad that's not me.
Wow.
Yeah, 76. That's a long time.
That's something else. But I mean, he still has the rest of his life to look forward to, however long that is,
That's true.
Oh yeah, he has to think of that as well. Like you've got to. My friend told it to me in this great way. He used the movie Step Brothers. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but there's a part where Will Ferrell shows John C. Reilly these night vision goggles, and John C. Reilly goes, "Can you imagine if we had these when we were 15?" And Will Ferrell goes, "Better yet, we've got them when we're 40." And that's like the right attitude to have, is this idea that, like, fuck it, I've got it now. And the way that I've sort of come to reconcile that is that, like, okay, I have the night vision goggles now, the information that I wanted to have, that I wish I would have had when I was younger. So if I had that information, because I'm 31 now, if I had that information 10 years ago when I was 21, then I would wish that I had had it 5 years sooner than that when I was 15. And if I had it 5 years sooner than that when I was 15, then I definitely would have taken it for granted. And so I think you just have to be as stoked as you possibly can be that you have all of the things now that you have now, rather than thinking I wish I had these things before. And that's not a chastisement. I'm not better than you, because like I have that thing too. I have that voice in my head that's always saying, God, I wish I had this earlier.
I love that analogy so much, because it's that that regret that sets in, like when you leave a religion or a cult, is so immediate. Like he has those goggles, right, and he's so excited about them, and then he's like, damn it, why didn't we have these sooner? Why didn't we have these night vision goggles sooner? And that's our natural reaction. But the other guy saying, better yet, we have when we're 40. That's wise. And the reason that it's wise is because to sit here and say you could have had it 20 years ago, it can go the other way too. It could have been 20 years later that you got them. You could have not gotten night vision goggles till you were 60. And so having that awareness can bring you back to a space of gratitude that can help you be grateful that it happened at all, as opposed to being so angry that it didn't happen sooner. And now I think it's a natural reaction. I think you have to kind of deal with that anger, but I think that understanding that your life will be better if you can get to a place of gratitude, it will make your life better. Understanding that, I think, is very, very powerful.
Yeah, like imagine if you were 40 and you left the Mormon church, right? Like your kids were in their 20s, or if like it's just crazy because you left when you were what, 23, you said?
Something like that.
Jared? Yeah, so I mean, like, it's wild to think, like, what if you waited another 20 years?
Yeah. I guess you just got to be in the present moment, like you got it when you got it, and now it's the present, and do what you can with it. So
yeah, think about that too.
Focus on the present moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's still hard to do. Definitely still hard to do.
It is hard. It's incredibly difficult. It's easy, like in understanding why that would be helpful, but it's hard in action. And I think that that's why acceptance is such a personal journey. Like you have to come to terms with, like, how am I going to accept this is the reality that I'm living with? And you have to find a way to come to terms with that. And yeah. So bring this back to friendships again. I'm trying in my life to find ways to navigate, developing good, healthy, encouraging friendships. And I wonder if anyone has any thoughts as far as, like, red flags of, like, this is not the kind of friendship that you want to stick with, or any green flags, like, here's the kind of things to look for. Because I mean, this is still something I'm trying to navigate. But if anyone has any thoughts on that.
Okay, I have one. So I love all of my friends very much, and they're all very kind to me. But one thing that I love is when I say, like, in my imperfections to a friend, and they just listen and they just accept me as is, because we all fail, and like I said before, we're all basically, like, we're adult children, basically, we're still learning. So I love it when I am saying I'm struggling with this, and I don't get chastised, or I don't get chastised. I don't get a sermon. They don't give me advice or anything. It's just like, oh yeah, like, I struggle with that too. Like, I don't judge you for it. So I just like that.
Like, they don't try to fix you, right? Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
they just accept me as is. So.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd say one of the things that I've seen has been So there's this way in which in which Morgan is very different from the people that I know, right? And that way is that, like, I can understand for years that this might be a better thing to do than what I'm currently doing, right? Like with cutting sugar out of your diet or something like that. I could understand that for years. People could tell me that for years, and it would take me years and examples of people doing it to actually start doing it. Morgan, though, if you can convince Morgan that a thing is a good idea, she just fucking does it like immediately, right? And so we dug into the concept of honesty, and then Morgan was like, well, I guess I just have to be completely honest with everyone starting right now. And she just did it. And I've been kind of working up to that to try to be more honest with people. But Morgan's just like, I guess I have to do it now. And it's pretty cool. And she's done it more with her family and with her friends. And every single person she's done it with has reacted one of two ways. Because again, I talked earlier about things that the body wants versus things that the soul wants. And this is an area where it's completely the opposite. The soul wants truth and the body wants lies. I might be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure that I'm right about it. And there's people who are waiting for their soul to be spoken to. And I've seen Morgan talk to them, and I've seen them say, you know what? The honesty that you give is very refreshing. It feels good. It feels like something that I don't have in my life that you're giving to me. And then I've seen people who want lies, and they react like a panicked beast that's cornered by a predator, and they freak out and they lash out and they do anything they can. Just lie to me, whatever it takes. Just lie to me. Tell me I'm perfect the way I am. And so that's what I would say about making friendships, is be completely honest with a person. And if they react by telling you, oh my God, this is refreshing, and don't be a dick, right? Because there's people I know who say, like, I'm brutally honest.
They're just assholes.
But it's just an excuse. It's not honesty. It's an excuse to be brutal. The brutality matters to them more than the honesty. So just be honest with people in a way that you are trying, like you're saying the things that they need to hear. And the people who react correctly, be friends with them. Do not let go of those friendships if you can help it. The people that like react like cornered beasts who are about to die because somebody told them the truth about themselves that might be uncomfortable, stop being friends with them. That's what I would say. Like, that's the best way to make positive friendships.
Yes, I appreciate Morgan's honesty.
You were actually the example I was thinking of. I was because Morgan told me that like you hung out one time and you said
it was
that.
the couch. It was the couch.
Right. So it was a bad idea to buy the white couch.
There was some kind of joke about, Shayla's got a big white couch, and there was some kind of, she was like, it was a bad idea because we have young kids, and I was like, yeah, it was. I was just like, what? Because we're used to, me and Shayla both grew up Mormon, around a lot of these very people pleasery type of Mormons, and the reaction to that would normally be, oh no, it was a good idea. It was so good. Like,
I was expecting that. But I loved it when you were just like, yeah, it was. I was like, oh my gosh, that's so awesome. Like, she just called me out. I loved it. It was fun. So
we talked about that actually. Yeah, it was fun. I remember having that conversation after you left. It's like, just Morgan told me that it was a bad idea to buy the couch. I'm like, well, she's not wrong, right? Like,
it's such a little thing. It's such a little thing, but I was like, wow, like nobody's ever agreed with me with that, or nobody's ever like. And not that I was looking for people to agree with me, but it's pretty obvious it was a bad choice, and like such a little thing. But you were like, you didn't even hesitate, and I just appreciate your honesty.
See, everybody doesn't like.
It's good to have honest friends.
It's true, and people might react weird about it, like, oh my gosh, like, okay, that was a little much. But the second those people need an honest opinion, they're gonna come to you.
Yeah.
The second they could be like, oh man, they're a little much, but the second they're like, I really need to know if this looks good, I need to find somebody who's going to tell it to me straight, because if it doesn't, I need to go change. The first person they're going to hit up is you. You're going to get a snap, and then you're going to be like, no, that's absolutely foul. Please don't wear that, and don't talk to my children ever again, sort of thing. No, I'm just kidding. So like, like you're gonna be able to give them an honest opinion, and they're going to be really grateful, because it's tough to find an honest opinion when you need it.
I love that, because it is like we're so afraid of protecting people. Like that's how I used to be, at least. And it's still something I work through, but it's like I'm so fixated on protecting people and their feelings, and like that I can't stop and think about like what would be best in this situation. And like Ian said, but like, wouldn't it be better to be a trustworthy friend than like a friend that just coddles your feelings? And that's the thing, is when you coddle someone's feelings, you are stopping them from growing. When you coddle their feelings, you're saying you're not capable of dealing with this, and I have to jump in and fix it. Like, you're not capable of dealing with the fact that the white couch is going to get dirty, like I have to fix it.
So I think you'll always want to protect the people that you love. It's just that if you mature, then hopefully you get to the point where you realize, oh, I was protecting them from truth when what I should have been protecting them from was lies. Right. Like, obviously the couch example isn't a big deal, but it was enough of a big deal that it was sort of like a refreshing, startling thing. But like, you had good intentions when you would lie to people, right? Like, we all have good intentions when we lie to our friends. We're trying to protect them from the truth. But then at some point we realize that truth is something that maybe you should hold sacred, and that lies, while they might be immediately comforting, always end in failure. And so protect them from lies, because nobody else will. Most people will try to protect them from truth, which is a good thing. Truth is a good thing. So be the only person that protects them from lies, because it might hurt for a moment, but if they just stand there and face the music, then that, I don't know, it'll lead to a better outcome.
I think I really like the way you put that. I think it's this like, wow, yeah, that just made me really think. I feel like in the past year I was always so focused on like, I need to protect these people's feelings, that I didn't stop to think about what would be best for this person. Because we're always just trying to minimize the pain. We're trying to minimize the pain in the present moment, but we're not thinking about trying to minimize the pain in the long term.
Well, it's almost a panic response.
Yeah.
When you lie to somebody to make them feel immediately better, you're panicking.
You lie to someone. Yeah. Right.
Anyway, they look like they're tired.
Oh yeah, it's your bedtime.
Actually, I just noticed that it is starting to creep up. I had another about 5 minutes before I was going to have to interject, but
yeah, no, that's great. Just any closing thoughts anyone's got, because this was great. This was an awesome discussion. Any other closing thoughts?
I stepped out too much. I don't know what you guys talked about.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. You're fine.
We should talk shit on you the whole time.
What is wrong with you?
Honestly.
No, but as far as my closing, it is really tough it's really hard to live in quality and do quality things. And that's why it is quality, though, is because it has value, and that value had to be earned somehow. And so it's hard. It's just hard. No matter how you want to live, if it's in the direction that you want it to go, no matter what, there's going to be some displeasure and some difficulty inherently involved with it. And accepting the displeasure and the difficulty that comes with it allows you to make better and faster progress, in my experience.
So my closing thought on to jump off of that Oh, actually, I want to say, okay, so going back really quick, just to you talking about identify the problem. Identify the problem. I think that that is such good advice because whatever suffering or struggling that we have in our lives, if we can dial it back to identifying the problem, which is hard to do, it's not easy. Identify the problem, then you can actually start to look for solutions. And um, I would say to tack on to that, the whole friendship thing. Um, Keep in mind that when you try to start tackling these problems and you try to start finding solutions and trying to take that action forward, that some people will make fun of you or ridicule you or not understand you, and that there's psychological reasons for them doing that. And it's usually self-protective. And so, like, disregard that. Don't let it mean that you aren't doing a great job. Focus on making you proud of what you're doing and not other people. And then, yeah, I think that's identify the problem was just such good advice. I loved that.
Yeah. All I will say in closing is that Jay mentioned earlier I should do a sober month. And what I will say to that is, yes, you should. And I'm doing January. I already did my 3 months this year, but gonna do next year. And for January, it's gonna be no alcohol, no video games, and
no sex.
yeah, no.
I'm just
hate
kidding.
to
I
see
would die.
Yeah, so anyway, no alcohol January. So if you want a partner in a sober month, Jay, I've got your back.
Nice. Okay. And Finding Craig said, what state are we? We're in Idaho, and so is Ian and Shayla. Not that, I mean, well, now it's public knowledge. You're welcome, guys. And okay, anyway, thank you guys. Yay, drink it all in December.
Hey, I mean, this is just straight gin right here. So
thank you to everyone who is watching. I try to do these lives every Tuesday night that I can. Next week is actually going to be Wednesday, and I'm so excited about that. The plan is to talk about the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once, and Cody's going to be here for that. I'm so excited because that movie is epic. We're actually going to watch it with Ian and Shayla this weekend again, so I'm stoked.
it might be my favorite movie ever. I don't know. It was.
Yeah. Okay, no spoilers. I haven't seen it yet.
It was
all right.
awesome.
Thank you guys for watching this, and we will see. Don't forget to hit subscribe, or else you suck. Clearly, hit subscribe. Thanks, guys. Bye.
See ya.
Bye.